everybody, it's Louisa from Now You're Cooking, and this is our Thursday night demo, again from the comfort of my own kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. Tonight we're making a Catalan fish, basically a chowder, a fish stew called Bullinada. Catalunya is in the northeastern part of Spain, where Barcelona is, and this is along the lines of a bouillabaisse or Zarzuela or a cioppino or any of the kind of Mediterranean fish stews. All of the countries around the Mediterranean have fish stews because there's lots of fish in the Mediterranean. So this is a great one for us here in Maine because we also have great seafood, especially this time of year. All year round we have great seafood, which we're really lucky to have. And tonight I'm using an induction burner because we're going to be using induction in our new kitchen, which is coming along pretty quickly. We're hoping to have that in a few weeks. It's builders, you never know when things are going to get finished, but we're really excited about it. We're excited about going to induction. And I'll talk a little bit about induction cooking for those that don't know what it is or don't. I think probably everybody's heard a lot about it recently because of the studies on gas stoves, which, by the way, are different from propane stoves. But anyway, so we'll get to that. They're really awesome, and it's really cool even to just have an extra burner if you need an extra burner. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Next week we're going to be making granola bars. From next week we are making Ina Garten's Irish Stout, Guinness Stout brown bread. The week after we're going to make homemade granola bars. And Heather made the brown bread a week or so ago, and it is so yummy. We're also going to make a honey butter to go on that. So anyway, back to the bullinada. We are going to start with some olive oil, about 2 tablespoons, which, and a cat hair. Sorry about that. Get that out of there. I have cats, and therefore I have cat hair. So there's olive oil in there, about 2 tablespoons. So we're going to turn this on, and we're going to go to saute. So that is going to heat up the pan. The beauty of induction cooking is the burner itself doesn't actually get hot. There's a copper coil in there, and it works through electromagnetism. So you have to have a pan that has ferrous something, has iron in it, so that it's magnetic. Cast iron, this is a stove pan. It's an enameled cast iron. It works great on there. Most stainless steel pans, but not all of them, work on induction. And so what you do is you just take a magnet. You can take a kitchen magnet from your fridge, stick it on the bottom. If it sticks or if it repels, it should work fine on an induction burner. If it just falls off and it won't do anything, then it probably won't work. So like Revereware pans, which a lot of us have from our parents and grandparents, those don't work. Copper bottom pans, aluminum won't work on it. So a lot of people don't love it because you have to actually make changes to what you have in your kitchen. However, there are a lot of benefits to it, and we'll get to that in just a sec. So my oil is pretty hot. You can see it's I don't know if you can see, but it's glistening, which means it's hot. And so I'm going to add onion. Ooh, sizzle, sizzle. So a couple of things to know about induction is it cooks a lot faster than electric or a regular electric coil or glass top stove. And it also, it cooks faster. Oh, so it cooks faster. So you might need to just keep an eye on what you're doing. You might need to tweak a little bit the way that you cook because it is a little different. It's a little faster and it's really super economical. It doesn't, I guess because it's faster, you're not using as much energy. You're also not heating the house. Like if I were doing this on a gas stove, I would have fumes from the gas stove, and I would also have heat coming out because I have those flames going. And I say if I do have, if I were using. So you just need to keep an eye. Like I can tell this is cooking so fast. And I'm ready to add my garlic. The recipe calls for 8 cloves of garlic. 6 are going in here. And then I have another 2 cloves that I minced up that are on standby. And I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I think I don't need it quite that hot. Very, very responsive. Again, the pan is getting hot. The stove isn't. Right underneath where the pan is, the glass will be hot because you're heating the pan. But it's not actually heating the stovetop at all. So that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to add some, I have about a 1/4 teaspoon of saffron. We have this at the store from Griffin Ridge. So we're going to put that in. Saffron adds an earthy flavor and a lot of really lovely color, yellow color, even though it's red looking.
What is saffron?
Saffron is the threads, is it the stamen? I don't know, I'm not a biologist, but it's this, I think it's the stamen, it's the threads that grow on a certain kind of crocus. So the kind we grow here, you know, just to have flowers in the spring is not going to be the same thing. It's a special type of crocus. However, you can grow them in Maine, but they're not super abundant, generally speaking. So I'm cheating and looking at my recipe. So we've got onion and garlic. I'm going to turn this back up just a little so that it's sizzling. And I don't know if you could hear how fast that started sizzling again. That was pretty amazing. It just went shoop. And I am adding fish stock. And I've got 2 quarts, which is a 1/2 gallon. And this is, by the way, a 5-quart Dutch oven from Stobe. This is a deep one. I think we still have a few in red and white. Really good sale price on these. So if you don't have one already, I highly recommend them. Really, really nice. It's the same base size as the 4-quart, but it's taller, so it adds an extra quart. Really nice for doing soups and so on. So there is my saffron and fish stock. I cheated and I pre-cooked my potatoes because I don't want to have this sitting here for 25 minutes while you're watching potatoes cook. So I'm going to put these in. These are new potatoes, which are just sliced about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick. And they seem like really big, but they cut up really easily when you eat them. So those are going in. Again, those are pre-cooked. I don't recommend pre-cooking because I think when you're making a soup, what I like about soup is there's all these flavors, and whenever you put an ingredient in and it cooks in that broth or whatever, it's going to absorb some of that flavor. So I don't recommend doing your potatoes separately. I just did it to make it faster for us here today. And I'm going to turn that back up. All right, I think I'm in love with this thing. It's really great. So that is going to start it boiling. Oh, I forgot to put my orange peels in. So there's also orange peel in here, orange peels, which add a really nice flavor. And the recipe says to take them out once it comes to a boil and you're ready to put your fish in. I take out some of it if it's floating right on top, but I don't worry about it being in there because it really adds a nice flavor. And it will continue to add a little bit of orange flavor to it as it cooks. So I don't worry about that too much. I've got 1/2 cup of dry white wine, which tonight we're using this La Mancha, which is a beautiful dry white. What is this?
Macabeo.
What is it?
Macabeo.
Macabeo. It's a lovely Spanish wine. And then we also have this guy here, which is another really nice dry, the Rueda. It's a beautiful dry white from Spain. You don't have to use a Spanish wine in this recipe, but it's nice if you do because it's a Spanish recipe. So we've got that going, and I also have some fennel seeds. which I am going to grind up in my mortar and pestle. And so I'm just going to go around and around, and it's crushing. You do want to make sure that when you're using spices like this and grinding them, that they're pretty fresh. I think we all have jars and jars of spices that are probably 10 or 15 years old. They really do lose their flavor. And especially if you're grinding it like this, because you want to pulverize it. And if they're not fresh and like almost crunchy, it's going to be really hard to mash them up or grind them. And if you don't have a mortar and pestle, please come see us. We've got lots of them, and has so much more flavor and aroma than just using ground fennel powder, which you can also buy, but really recommend using it this way. So that's going in. So we've got our potatoes, fennel, orange peel. We're going to add a pinch of salt. I use my Charles Vanson little guy here. In Maine, especially, we all know our salt gets kind of soggy, especially in the summer. And this keeps it dry so I can use it all the time. Also, a couple of grinds of pepper in there. And we're going to let that cook. So the recipe says to cook for 25 minutes because you've got to cook the potatoes. But we're basically just going to bring this up to a boil, which it's already looking like it wants to do. So this is, so far, onions, garlic, potatoes, wine, fish stock, fennel, saffron, and orange peels. And did I say potatoes? And potatoes. So that's going to heat up nicely. So while we're waiting for that, let's talk about induction a little bit more. There are pros and cons. So we talked about one of the cons, which is you may have to replace some of your cookware. I have a little cheat sheet here. You can't use warped pans. It has to be flat and have contact with the surface, the glass surface. So if you have old pans, or if you have heated up a pan and forgotten to put liquid into it and it's warped or whatever, it won't work on here because it's only going to make contact with where it's warped. So it's either rounded at the bottom or it's rounded up. Usually it's rounded on the bottom. So you're not going to get an effective cooking out of that. However, if your pan is warped, I'd replace it anyway. We sell a lot of tri-ply and even 5-ply pans at the store. Highly recommend them. I use the Cuisinart French Classic. Love it. It's a tri-ply. We have a 5-ply from Belgium, if you prefer that. It's a very heavy, very, very heavy duty sort of industrial strength, if you will. And we also have the Tramontina from Brazil. I'm being very salesy tonight. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be. But we do have great stuff for the induction. We are also looking into finding a plate that you can put on so that you can use clay bakers, or, like we have our Emile Henry, which I have a ton of personally, and I wouldn't be able to use it on, there it is right down there. Thank you, Heather. I wouldn't be able to use that on induction, so we're looking for a plate that you can put on. It heats up the plate, and the plate then heats up the pot. So it is still possible to use different pans on here, but we've got to get that in so that we'll have that option. And the other thing, really the only other con that I came up with, and I did a bunch of research today, is that you may have to tweak the way you cook. Well, tweak the way you cook. I mean, I don't see that as a con. It's just a change, and change is good. Change can be good. So I would say, really the biggest problem with them is that you may have to buy new cookware. But hey, you get to buy new cookware. So is that really a con? And any of your cast iron, carbon steel, your Le Creuset, your stove, any of these beautiful enameled cast iron will work just fine on there. So you don't have to get everything new. I guess the only other con is, oops, what have I done? The only other con is you hit buttons when you don't expect to, but there is a lock button. If I push the lock button, I don't think I could do that. And let's try it. All right, it's locked. Where was I going? Oh, so it's a glass top, so you do need to be careful when you're using a heavy pot. You don't want to drop it on there. If you have like a raw cast iron, you don't want to slide it across because you could easily scratch the top. That being said, they're really easy to clean, and most cracks, like if there's just a crack around the edge, that's not going to affect it. If it goes right across the burner, that might be a problem. I haven't looked that far into it, but just try to avoid cracking it, I guess is what I would say. The benefits are they're super powerful. They're very fast. As you saw a little earlier, I just hit the temperature button once or twice and it started sizzling immediately. It is so responsive. Every time you change the temperature, it really quickly goes down and is emitting the amount of heat that you want. Keeping in mind that your pan, being metal, is going to retain the heat for a while. So very responsive, it's fast. Another thing that is great about this is there's no flame there, there's no electric coil. If you put a piece of paper on here, it's not going to catch on fire. In fact, some people will put a paper towel between their cast iron and the surface because it's still going to heat it, but you're not going to probably scratch your surface. And I think unless you're doing a really, really high heat, it's not going to catch on fire. I'm not saying that anybody should do that. Some people do. I'm not recommending it. But so there are, it's not like if I put this on here by accident, it's not going to catch on fire. If I did this on my gas stove, propane stove, it would go up immediately. If I did that on an electric coil stove, it would probably start burning within seconds. So they're very safe. The top, again, it gets hot because the pan is hot, not because the stove is hot. So it's really much safer in a number of ways. And I explained how it works. It's electromagnetic energy, so you just have to make sure that your pots and pans will work on it. And as long as your pots and pans will work on it, it's great. We have this one from Zavor, which is a single burner, as you can see. These are really great too, just to have on hand if you need an extra burner. If you grill a lot and you want to have it, you can have it outside and boil your clams on that while you're cooking your steaks, or boil the lobsters while you're cooking the steaks. When I say boil, I mean steam, of course. Or your corn on the cob or whatever you're making, you can turn this up. Oh no, I'm not, because I locked it. Now I can't unlock it. I'll figure that out and tell you how it works. So this is getting pretty hot. It's not boiling, but it is bubbling. I can see things are kind of moving around in there. So I'm going to add my fish. This is cod. This is previously frozen cod. I should have got fresh, but I was in a hurry. So I got this, and it's going to taste just as good. And we're just going to lay these full fillets right on top here. This is actually a little bit more than what is called for in the recipe. So those go right on top, and they are going to cook just like that. But as they cook, they're going to fall apart and they're going to become nice and flaky. So I have to turn it off, turn it back on. Oh my gosh. Help. Okay, I may have just not been able to. I was just trying to get rid of the lock. Okay, so I'm gonna need to wait. What's that? We're gonna just pretend that it's still cooking. So this is a creamy soup. But there is no dairy in it, which is great for anybody that can't eat dairy. So you can't have Maine fish chowder or clam chowder because there's dairy in it. You can have this though. The way we make it creamy is by adding mayonnaise. There's 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise. I've got garlic. This is my other 2 cloves of garlic. The recipe, remember, called for 8. We use 6 in with onions, and then I've got the other 2 here. This is Aleppo pepper. Probably going to make me sneeze. I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of Aleppo pepper, which is going to add a really nice flavor to that. And I've got a little bit of lemon juice. And I'm going to whisk this up. Heather's just trying to help me out here. As you can see, I have a bit to learn about the induction burner. And that's okay. We're going to learn and it's going to be fine. So anybody, if you don't like mayonnaise, don't think about this as being a mayonnaise-y soup, because it's not going to make it greasy. It's not going to make it icky. It's not going to make it mayonnaise. You're not even going to really taste the mayonnaise. What it is really is the egg in the mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is just egg and oil, basically. I mean, the stuff you buy in the store obviously has other stuff in it, but it's really just egg and oil, and salt, maybe a little mustard powder. So don't think of it like you're putting all this mayonnaise into the soup, because that does sound kind of icky, but it's not. Let me tell you, the soup is so fabulous. So we're going to pretend that the fish is all cooked, which it cooks up pretty quickly. Cod is a more dense. If you were using haddock, it would probably be just about cooked by now. As I said in the recipe, it says to take out the orange peel. I'm going to leave them in. And so we're going to temper our egg, because basically that's what's in here, in the form of mayonnaise. So if you're making something like a pudding, creme brulee, anything that has egg or egg yolks in it for a thickener, because egg is a great thickener, you want to temper it. If you just pour your egg into hot boiling water, it's going to cook it and you're going to have little chunks of scrambled egg in your soup. And you don't want that. At least I don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the hot broth, and it's okay if there's some onions in there, and we're going to very slowly, while we're whisking, we're going to mix this in with the mayonnaise. Or again, if I were making pudding or a creme brulee, I would do it the same way. The hot stuff goes into the egg and it warms it up so that when you add it into the hot broth, which we'll do in a second, you're not going to cook the egg because it's already fairly well cooked, or heated up, I should say. Okay, so that's going to go in here. And from this point on, I am not going to boil this soup. I want it to heat up, and I'm going to cook it for about, well, until it's really cooked thoroughly. And then the other thing is obviously making sure that the fish is cooked. So you can see it's a nice creamy, sort of semi-thickened soup. But there's no dairy in it. So there you go. If you're dairy intolerant, you can have this soup. You can have chowder again. You could probably do the same thing with a Maine fish chowder. I've never tried it, but why wouldn't you? It's basically the same ingredients. So if you wanted to make a creamy chowder. So my apologies for turning off the stove when I didn't really want to. We'll probably be doing some demos when we get our new stove. Definitely we'll be showing you how it looks and how it works in the big stove top. Until then, we have the Zavor single burner. We also carry a double burner from Cuisinart. They're a great addition to any kitchen. grilling station, outdoor kitchen if you have an outlet and a safe place to plug it in. Really great way to cook, and we're super excited to have the induction stovetop in our kitchen. We are going to send you some pictures and maybe video once this gets nice and hot again. To serve, I'm going to put in some parsley, and I will also serve parsley and Aleppo pepper on the table with it, so people can add that as they desire. So you've got the orange, you've got a nice, beautiful color here to the broth with the orange and also with the saffron in there. It's just gorgeous. It's got a little lemon juice. It's got the orange in there, full of vitamin C. So that is bullinada, and that is a Catalan fish chowder. And I hope you try it because it is really, really scrumptious. Next week, we're going to be making Ina Garten's Guinness brown bread. It's not a steamed brown bread. It's a baked brown bread. And it is so delicious. And we're going to be making a honey butter to go with that. The week after, we're going to make some homemade granola bars, which are such a super delicious treat for anybody to take hiking or take to work or take to school as an extra snack. And you can make it as healthy or unhealthy as you like with chocolate or seeds or whatever, however you like them. So that's in 2 weeks. And then Avery is going to be doing, our little chef Avery is going to be doing taco salad bowls. So she's going to be making the taco bowl and then making the salad inside of it. And she's going to show us how to do that. So we're very excited about that. Keep an eye on our emails because as soon as we can, we're going to start our wine tastings and cooking classes again. We don't know exactly when it's going to be, but it won't be soon enough, is all I can say. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll send some pictures once this is all ready to roll. And I hope you make it again. It is so delicious and you're going to love it. The orange just adds a really nice touch. And I think that is it from here at my house. Thanks for joining me.